and refine it, and gradually you'll end up with the perfect computer science course, the perfect materials course through this process of sharing. I think there are examples of that happening, but if you set yourself up with that as your target, then you're probably going to fall down. And the brick wall trap, and I actually showed the slides at a previous event, and I was told what it is that should be written on the brick wall. Nothing will make me join in. So no matter what you do to lower barriers, no matter what you offer people, actually this isn't a world you'll get everybody joining in. And you can spend a long time hitting your head against that brick wall as well. So I've got this slide here for two purposes. One is, if you get caught in those traps, your work can disappear down a black hole. And so this seems a perfect representation of this, but also it's arranged me to pause, because I know that if I keep going, I can get into a swing, and it'd be much better if I could check whether there's any questions, whether people themselves recognize any of these as key things that are perhaps happening around them, holding them up. So I'm going to go off the mic for a bit, and please do feel free to grab it.
I could identify with all of those traps. I think the one that I commented in the text is just the legacy issue, and it's a challenge because the legacy issue is worse the more successful you were in the past. And I think there's a sense that you know, if you've been struggling, and I often think of the story from IBM where they needed about 4 or 5 years of drastic losses in red ink on the books before they really changed their whole way of operation. And unfortunately, many educational institutions seem to be able to coast along at a, you know, a much below par on what they could do, because they have a model that did work in the past and works sort of okay in the now, and without too much thought of is it really going to work into the future.
Yes, I think you're right, and Lynn's also put up sort of, this can all sound a bit like the auto industry, and is the university sector an industry that's in some sort of decline, in which case are we working on the disruptive technologies that can actually offer a sort of chance for a rebirth, or at least a new way of working. The university sector's model has been really very, very resilient against the introduction of various technologies, and whether what's happening now with the openness of information, certainly I heard it, another one of these arbitrary statistics. After all, 84% of statistics are made up, that half of what you learn in a university is already sort of obsolete by the time you're leaving. That so knowledge isn't everything. I'm sure everybody in this room regularly looks up things on Google, as I mentioned. Maybe you're off Googling aspects, as I was saying, sort of looking up Ivan Illich, for example. You don't really need to know what the key points are of his research. It's very readily available to you by looking. And does this change then the dynamics of our education as an industry? Do we need to change, does the degree that you're giving, the accreditation, which everybody says is the thing that we give that nobody else can give, does that change in value? I'll open up the mic again for any comeback on that or anything else.
Hi, it's Lynn. I couldn't help thinking while you were talking about this, and also when you were talking about the perfectionist issues, that the focus in education seems to be moving more from the product to the process. Like you were talking about looking up things in Google, and I see my own children going through this as they're learning to not so much create a product at school, but using the technologies and using what's available and learning how to use that to find what they need. And the same goes for this open access model that you're talking about. If we can get away from feeling like we have to create the perfect product and just put out there what we're working on and learn through the process, then I think we're taking that those baby steps in the right direction.
Yes, thanks, Lynn. I think that it does feel the right thing to be doing, and I think that sort of being brave enough to share at a stage where your work can still make an impact is something that I personally still find a bit difficult to do, to be honest. It's sort of the honing that you do of work so you can put forward all the arguments and back them up that we're trained to do as researchers versus actually just getting an idea out there and having it discussed. And in CloudWorks, we're trying to move along to that sort of more dynamic area. And sort of, I think that Terry made a good suggestion about the Open Scholar and the terminology we use locally as digital scholarship, sort of learning to take advantage of these tools. I'm going to move on, and sort of I felt I might have depressed people, so I thought I'd sort of point out that we have reasons to be cheerful as well. I've got to say that this particular slide, I lifted a wine glass up from beside the sink, and there was this smiley face. So it's obviously a message in there somewhere. Well, I think the reason to be cheerful is about openness, the impact that openness can have, the way it can help solve a lot of practical problems. Just the sharing of materials. We had a project, we've got an ongoing project called TESSA, working with sub-Saharan Africa. And the mechanisms of trying to transfer our material from here to particular sites in Africa was really tricky. And it was far simpler to say everybody put everything in the open, everybody put everything available for free, and then they can pick it up as well as the rest of the world, and the rest of the world can then start to spot new benefits. So openness can change the way you work. And then what we need to do then is sort of weigh up the evidence, sort of gather these things that work and ask why all the time. Why are we trying to do these things? And if we sort of step back from some of the hows and what's that we tend to be concentrating on, and sort of think about why are we trying to do this? What can we achieve by addressing these issues? How can we move things forward? And this brings me back to the AllNet project and sort of the model that we're trying to develop behind this. A colleague of mine, Simon Buckingham Shum, came up with the analogy. So these are a couple of pages from UK Cancer Research. And if we think about what has happened in a world like that, where they've got a big problem to solve, and the main thing from the point of view of an agency like UK Cancer Research is to get everybody focusing on the right sort of issues. So that's what we're trying to do in AllNet. We're developing an approach about getting people to pay attention to what open education resources and that world can achieve. So again, sort of Simon's terminology is a collective intelligence approach, trying to, by getting more people, sort of in populist terms, I suppose, it's the wisdom in crowds, the wisdom of more people thinking about the same sort of thing. And we've got some interesting tools to help us develop that approach to working through materials. This tools that we've been developing, Cohere, is an interesting tool. You get it from the AllNet site. I'm not going to show these things now, where you can put together ideas and sort of reason through the arguments for and against. So try and get that evidence out there and shared. CloudWorks, that I've mentioned several times already, is another place we're starting to do this to encourage people to work together. And so we were collecting together the evidence that people are building independently around the world.